It's very inspiring talks that that have given very practical advice by the various speakers.
Awesome. What time is it over in Singapore right now?
It's about 1:30 a.m. on a Monday morning.
Okay.
Oh, it's funny. I got to do a virtual presentation to the Singapore Society. I forget the name. It was pretty exciting. There's a lot of trainees there, which sounds like it's really building up now.
Fellows who don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luke, how many training programs are there for IR in Singapore?
Well, I think currently there are really two main programs in Tan Tock Seng Hospital as well as Singapore General Hospital.
Okay.
The rest of the centers are smaller and generally would only take in our local residents. But the main centers are still Singapore General Hospital as well as Tan Tock Seng Hospital, where the bulk of the IR procedures and complex procedures are performed.
Okay.
So under the training program, they're under clusters. So the Tan Tock Seng Hospital is under the National Healthcare Group, and Singapore General Hospital is under the Sing Health Group, and under the umbrella KK Women's and Children's Hospital, as well as Changi Hospital and Sengkang Hospital are part of that group of hospitals, where residents also get rotated to the various centers. Yeah.
So a lot of them do get to see other centers during their training.
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
So the trainees get to see the other hospitals during their training?
All right. So as part of the rotations, well, how should I put it? Our current IR training is actually part of the diagnostic radiology training. So those who actually want to eventually become IRs, in the final year of their training, they would be doing, say, 3/4 of that year in IR to kickstart their IR careers. After which they exit from the diagnostic radiology training program and generally spend about another year or two as an associate consultant, but still under training.
I see.
Yep. So that's our system right now. We haven't gone into a separate IR track completely. So it's still part of the DR training. I know that quite a few of the earlier speakers have shared that we really want to be getting people into the IR track from the surgeon's pool. But that's still evolving, and I certainly am, aligned with that kind of thinking, because the IR is a more surgical person, whereas a diagnostic radiologist is more like a pathology type person.
Right. So I think, guys, since we're just past 12:30, I think we can start. And I think we'll talk about this further during the actual session. So I think most of us, I think all of us are here from the panel. So you guys are ready. I'll just go ahead and get started here. So good morning, everyone on the West Coast. It's actually 12:30 where I am here in Ohio. We got our wonderful international panel here to discuss what IR training is like in different parts of the world. I think, and I'm Justin, so I'm a second year attending at Cleveland Clinic. I did my residency training in Iowa and then fellowship at Hopkins in Baltimore, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I chair the SIR Global Trainee Network, and really our goal has been to improve the footprint of IR training globally, and we do that through a few different avenues. One is we try to create a network of IR attendings and connect them with trainees throughout the world. We try to increase the amount of educational materials available, and we also try to help the International Outreach Committee, our trainee section of the RFS, in their endeavors. So I think to start, we got a number of panelists here that have been invited. I like each of you guys to kind of introduce yourselves and really go into a brief detail about, what your involvement in IR is. I don't know, maybe Greg, do you want to start?
Should we start ladies first?
Say that again. Sorry.
Should we start with ladies first?
Oh, we can
Merv?
start with yeah. Maybe we have Merv.
Hey, Merv, I haven't seen Merv in years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marve. I'm a vascular intervention radiologist at the University of Kentucky, and I'm originally from Turkey. I came to United States about 6 years ago, and I did alternate pathway. I did over 2 years of interventional radiology fellowship, and I completed that 4 years of alternate pathway with body imaging and neuroimaging. And then for my first job, I came to University of Kentucky.
Perfect. Who's next on our list? I think there were a number of individuals. Maybe Greg, do you want to go?
Yeah. Well, very nice to see you all. Some old friends, some new friends. Great to be here. So I'm Gregory. I'm a vascular interventional radiologist from London. I'm actually Greek, but I've been in the UK for the last 14 years. I came here to do my PhD in vascular surgery and then moved to the right side, I guess, do interventional radiology. I was the chair of the CERSI European Trainee Forum, which is the equivalent of the RFS. And since last year, I'm also the Global Clinical Lead Director of the Vascular and Therapeutic area of VIR Pharmaceuticals. But today I'm here with my hat as interventional radiologist, so you're safe.
Awesome. Luke, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Yeah. Well, I'm Luke Toh. I'm from Singapore, and I'm an interventional radiologist with special interest in pediatric and women's interventions. Yeah, so I also currently administer the radiology department in my hospital. So that has probably reduced a little bit of my clinical time. I've been active also representing Singapore in the Asia Pacific Society of Vascular Interventional Radiology, and also an active member of SPIR, which is the Society for Pediatric Interventional Radiology. So yeah, I've got a keen interest really in vascular anomalies as well as all things women and children.
Awesome. Who do we have next? Fabian, want to introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going? Fabian here. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stay on for the whole discussion because I'm about to fly to Paris and meet Aya and many other friends. I'm departing from Tanzania right now, but Ivan is about to join, and I've been working with Ivan since 2017. We built the training program in Tanzania together, and he's now practicing interventional radiologist in Rwanda. So he's going to be able to tell you both about Tanzania and Rwanda. And, he's really been through building a practice from the ground up in Rwanda. And I think he'll be able to provide a very interesting perspective. Thank you guys so much.
Perfect. So before you leave, Fabian, can you just talk about Road to IR, like the work you've been doing?
Absolutely. So basically, the way Road to IR started is that we found that in Tanzania, there was really no interventional radiology at all only a few years ago. So we figured we're going to try to train interventional radiologists there. And we figured we do this by sending interventional radiologists from the US and from Europe to Tanzania in 2-week blocks. And our aim was to send at least 10 teams per year, and not only the physicians, but also nurses and technologists. And so we started this in 2018. And by now we've graduated 10 interventional radiologists, 8 of them from Tanzania, 1 from Rwanda, and 1 from Nigeria. And it's a 2-year training program. It's basically completely modeled after the US training system. So they do 3 years of diagnostic radiology, followed by 2 years of interventional radiology, When we first started out in 2018, it was mostly basic procedures, biopsies, drainages, nephrostomies, biliary drains, a lot of that. But it's really evolved. So now we're basically able to provide the full spectrum with the exception of Y90. So we do TACE. I just did a TACE here in Tanzania 2 days ago. We do a few tips. We are starting to do some venous work. We do a lot of fistula work, very complex cases because patients often show up very late with really brutal obstructions. So I feel like IR really has found its place here and has been very impactful. The surgeons really appreciate us. We get, I think, probably 2/3 of our referrals from the surgeons. And at this point, there's really no way without IR here in Tanzania. And now it's very nice to see actually that IR is spreading from the main hospital in Dar es Salaam, which is the largest in Tanzania, to smaller towns. So a lot of the graduates have now moved to other towns in Tanzania. I actually just came back from Mwanza, which is in northern Tanzania by Lake Victoria. One of the graduates there from last year is now there and is building his practice there. And like I said, Ivan is in Rwanda. So, there's a lot of demand for IR everywhere. And I actually see that Ivan just joined now. So he's going to be able to tell you guys some more.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds amazing. So I think it'd be great. I know that we take, IRs from the US to go help with the training. If you maybe during the session, we can talk further about how people can get involved with that.
Yeah, so what I'll say about that is like really everyone is welcome to be involved. There's obviously a role for faculty, but also for medical students and for trainees. We do a lot of research projects. We have a medical student from Harvard, Jared Oswong, who's been here since last August, who's been doing a whole research year here in Tanzania. And there's a lot of open questions about the role of interventional radiology in a setting like Tanzania, cost effectiveness, etc. And obviously IR, as we know, is different in every country, right? So we basically have to find our niche and find how we can be most helpful. So I think there's a lot to do, not only for interventional radiologists, but also for trainees and med students. So everyone that's interested, you can find us on the line and you can get in touch with us.
For sure. All right, so before we get into more questions, I think we still got a few people to introduce. We got Dr. Musa. Would you be able to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Amgad Musa. I'm one of the interventional radiology attendings at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I'm an assistant professor of radiology at Weill Cornell. I did my residency and one-year fellowship in Egypt before moving over to New York, where I did a fellowship in IR at Sloan and stayed on as an attending. This was 4 years ago. So I'm 4 years in now.
Welcome, welcome. And then we also have Targ and Aya who are the co-chairs of the International Outreach Committee. Would you guys mind introducing yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to join you today. My name is Tariq Hakim. I did my internal medicine residency in Kindle and looking forward to pursue another residency in IR. Very inspired about the field and its way that it's going more also toward patient care, patient-centered care, and intervention related. I'm currently running with Aya with the SIR RFS International Outreach Committee, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aya. Very happy to be amongst this amazing panel. I'm a last year ESIR resident at Yale Bridgeport in Connecticut, and I'm here in care. So I do apologize if there's any background music. That's the Burj Khalifa music entertaining us. So I apologize if it's causing us any noise. I'm very, very happy to have worked along with Monica and now Tariq in the International Outreach Committee of SIR, and of course with Greg doing all our global summit initiatives that we can talk about later.
Awesome. So I think Dr. Makris, Greg had a presentation ready, and he does have to be somewhere in a little bit. So I'll give the floor to Greg right now for a presentation.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen. That's okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, go
Can you
ahead.
see in presentation mode?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was asked to talk about the the European training and the European Trainee Forum. Again, thanks for the invitation. I mean, it's a little bit hard. It's a hard one because European training is very different in every country. I mean, Europe is not like the US. We have so many different countries and so many different cultures and approaches to radiology training that it's almost impossible to talk about all of them. But what I wanted to do in this presentation is I wanted to introduce your audience to the what the European Trainee Forum is and what we have achieved all these the last few years. And the reason why we established Trainee Forum the reasons are exactly the ones that I just mentioned, right? I mean, all this heterogeneity that we have in Europe when it comes to training, education, and IR training, it was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring all these countries together. And obviously, CERSI, as the biggest European society, is doing that already, but until until 6 years ago, there wasn't something dedicated to the trainees. So yeah, so we started our journey in 2016. We started with representation for 5 European countries, and we are now in a good position that we represent almost all European countries, almost 24, 25 European countries, if I remember well. As I said, I was the first chair of this committee. I had the privilege to to work with this team for quite a few years, and our main focus was we wanted to promote intervention radiology in Europe, but also globally. We wanted to support educational activities, mentor as many medical students and junior doctors as we could, and that was one of our main objectives, I would say. And of course, we wanted to promote international mobility and raise awareness around IR and global health. So it's many objectives, and especially when it comes to education. I mean, there was a lot of work that we had to do in order to start spreading the word amongst medical students. I think that's a very common theme in the US and Europe, that medical students are not really aware of what intervention radiology is. And there has been progress, and having societies and sections within the societies like the RFS or the ATF are very important to make sure that we stay focused. It's much easier for us to reach out to these medical students and the trainees, and we can relate more with them, and we can also share our experiences. But also we can contribute by we spend a lot of time developing a curriculum for medical students that's freely available for anybody to download, guys, if you want to. I mean, if you Google that, you can easily find that. It's not just a list of topics. It's there's also quite a lot of information about different procedures and different highlights about these procedures. So I would definitely recommend our medical students to download that. So yeah, we spend a lot of time in education and trying to understand how intervention radiology works in Europe, because it might come as a surprise, but until that point we had absolutely no idea about that. We knew that training was very different in Europe, but we didn't know how much different it was. So we started by trying to map how different intervention radiology training was, and we put together a report. And obviously this report has been the basis of what we're trying to do in the future. And you can see just from this graph that even in terms of training time, you can see big differences between the European countries. Some countries it's half a year the IR training. In some others it can be 2 years. I mean, the UK, for example, it's 3+3. So we do 3 years of diagnostic radiology training and 3 years of intervention radiology training, plus 1 year of subspecialty training in oncology or vascular, if you want. And then we thought, okay, we need to take this one step further. So what we did, with the kind help of many other societies, including SIR and VIRS, we went global. So I think we performed one of the first global interventional radiology trainee surveys, and we try to understand, okay, now we have a better idea about Europe now, but how do we compare with other countries? And I'm not going to go into too much detail. This is all published worksheets. It's freely available as well. But you can see that, you know, it's very interesting to see how the different regions, you know, are being represented when it comes to, for example, vascular training or interventional oncology training or MSK interventional training and so on. So there are obviously quite a few differences, but there are also quite a few common patterns. Like there's a lot of satisfaction and a lot of faith in the specialty, and most people reported, you know, very good work-life balance. They reported excellent training opportunities in most areas. So the first, you know, from this first survey that we hope that at some point we're going to be able to repeat, the first results were quite encouraging. But obviously, what I want to show here is that that was one of the main reasons why we established this junior society, to make sure that juniors are properly represented within a big European society. And we did more work, for example, on international mobility and, you know, what is important, how we can encourage more trainees from European countries to move around Europe and experience other training systems and learn from other instructors. And of course, you know, this is not always easy, and that's why CERSI has started. There is a mobility scheme where we help, for example, students who want to go from one country to another for a few months to train, so we can create the connections that we can facilitate this move. Yeah, I mean, if you want to find out, all this information is easily available if you go to the cersi.org website. And of course, you know, we can do many things, but what we cannot do as a European junior society is we could not really, you know, go to each country separately and you know, establish. We could not change practice in every country separately. So that's why we thought it's very important to encourage this, to encourage the development of local or national, if you want, trainee committees within its country. And that's why we spent a lot of time trying to do that. And, you know, until 5 years ago, there was only maybe one national junior committee, and that was in the UK. But with, you know, the constant pressure and constant, you know, we managed to establish more and more junior representation within those countries. And we think that this is very important because, you know, as in the US, you have all your local subsections of RFS. This is what we want to do in Europe. And that's very important for us because it's otherwise very, very difficult to reach out to medical schools at a national level. I mean, other than that, we try to, you know, bring some of the big names of European interventional radiology closer to the juniors. We have started this interview series where we interview some prominent IRs. So we give an opportunity to the younger people to just get to know them a little bit, and you know, there are always contact details attached to these videos, so they can be easily approached. Because, you know, one of the most difficult things that, you know, you have to, you know, address when you're a trainee or a student is that you have to find a mentor. And I've heard that being mentioned a few times, but I think it's very important to find the right person to guide you through this long journey.
Hey,
so
Greg.
Again, yeah.
Greg, sorry, I'm going to pause you right there because we only have maybe like 7 minutes left in the session.
Okay.
Yeah. This has been a great presentation, but I think just to give other people some.
Of course. Sorry, I wasn't sure about the time and the format of the presentation.
One other thing is, as the questions are being asked, we really want to get everyone's perspective on the chat. do you mind all the faculty panel and trainee panel, do you mind putting it in your chat, these questions, so we can get a global perspective?
Yeah. So maybe if we have Luke and Merve, are you guys able to talk about training in what training is like where you trained at, like in Turkey and Singapore? Because I know Greg talked about, the heterogeneity of training in Europe and the difficulties. Maybe bring up some points from your perspective.
Of course, I was also writing it down. So I was also working in the RFS section in the Turkish Society of Interventional Radiology as a general secretary. It was a long time ago, but there are not too many structured fellowship programs. All the residency programs offer interventional radiology training, and after graduating from radiology residency, you can practice interventional radiology if you're interested. And where I did my residency, there was a structured fellowship training which had like aortic, PAD, and venous diseases. So it all depends where you are, and we have like a 6-year years of medical school. We don't have college, and after high school we start our medical school, and just with an exam you get matched, and there are like 10,000 applicants, and only like first 300 can get into like good residency positions like radiology, ophthalmology, neurosurgery, etc. And when you get matched, you start your residency, and there are not too, like, we do hands-on ultrasounds. Mostly ultrasounds are mostly done by the residents, and the fellowship, you don't have to have, like, there's no ACGME, but they're working on creating a structured fellowship program.
Awesome. Luke, do you have anything to add from your perspective?
Yeah, hi, sorry. My laptop ran out of battery. Well, I think I did share a little bit earlier about the Singapore program. It is partly begins during residency, and the rest of it would be continued on once people finish the diagnostic radiology residency and they continue their training as an associate attending. I suppose in the US, that would be what would be known as. So then that's also going to be local fellowships where the associate consultants would actually be doing full-time training in a different center from their own. So the plan was actually for a center like Singapore General Hospital and Tan Tock Seng Hospital to actually come up with their own local fellowship programs, so that people who want to train in IR can actually come in for a structured program. Currently, the program at SGH would cover the different specialties for body IR. So you go from like neck to toe, if you like, into urology. It's separate out into hepatobiliary system, the genitourinary system, as well as the vascular system. Neuroradiology is a totally separate training program.
So is that in terms of just diagnostics or just neuro IR?
That's for neuro IR. So for the neuro IRs, actually, they can also select to go into neuro IR, but that usually is kind of like parallel with the diagnostic neuroradiology training, because there's a lot of diagnostic component that they cover, and so that there isn't a there isn't a local established neuro IR training. So it's currently an apprenticeship program at the main hospitals, which are the National Neuroscience Institute as well as Singapore General Hospital for the neuro IRs. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Luke. So I think we have Dr. Musa from Egypt, and I think Targus from Egypt as well. Maybe Dr. Musa, can you talk about what training is like in Egypt as well?
Yes, of course. IR is still part of the diagnostic radiology department and service in Egypt. While it is less structured compared to other countries, it does give you and allow you a lot of time, depending on your dedication and your interest, to go and participate in taking care of patients and doing cases. And I think, like, from my experience, what has really helped me here is that in Egypt, I got a lot of hands-on experience much earlier than I would have gotten it here, especially for the technical aspects of procedures. Now, the clinical part, and I was just talking to Dr. V about that in the chat, is the clinical part is a bit lagging compared to the US, where you're actively involved in a clinic, where you're doing ICU rotations. That is much less than the US. But the technical part, you get hands-on experience. You start doing procedures a little bit earlier, or participating in procedures a little bit earlier than the US. And I think that has its advantages. Well, has some advantages at least.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see. Anything else you guys like to add? Maybe Targ and Aya, from your perspective, you know, in Egypt and the Middle East, like any challenges to training, things you'd like to see improved, where you see things going?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was a very, very insightful thought. I think from my side, we actually, I'm not from Egypt, I'm from Sudan. And like in Sudan, we recently discovered that there's only like 2 IRs that are available in the country. And there is no like structure training pathway that is available over there. And it just mainly depends of like referrals to outside countries. And both those 2 IRs are located in the capital. It's funny, like their practices are like in front of each other. So the rest of like which is the rest of the states doesn't have it. And I'm truly inspired like by the fact that what Rhode IR is doing now and incorporating IR within several countries in Africa. And I think this is one of like the major things that I wanted to speak about, is that if a lot of regions in the world that I'm missing the life-saving nature of IR. And if we take like, for example, Africa by itself, there is a significant lack of the specialty. And I think like there was a study that was showing that there's less than 20 IRs outside South Africa and Egypt. And to catch like the current like IRs, they need at least 10,000 IRs to match like the US by itself. So I definitely think that expanding it in other regions depends on us collaborating together and working together so that we can expand like IR trainings around the world and make it something that is possible. And one of the main things is we work together with like missions of like nonprofit organizations like the Road to IR team or the RAD-8 chapters. And there's a lot of things that we can innovate and bring together that can expand the field all around. And as Fabian just mentioned, like teamwork makes the dream work. And so that's something that can definitely be pursued. And yeah, and I feel like this is the training pathway, the fact that it was established in one country, it can actually be replicated in like more than 30 other countries. And the goal for us is like to support this replication programs, for an example, for offering volunteer trips, for example, to those members. And part of our goals, like from the IOC with Aya as well, is that we want to expand this further and make it something that is achievable. Yeah, and I think one of the other thought that we had, which we all know, like inadequate healthcare resources, like staffing and equipment, plays a major role in negative impact on patients' outcome. And one of the major issues that I figured in the development of IR and low-speed resource settings is the deficiency of like IR equipments. And this has significantly like contributed like to the healthcare disparities that we see. And if you think about like IR itself, the feasibility becomes a major issue. And if there is no IR equipment, then trainees cannot be trained, or trainers cannot train like trainees, or even like IR procedures cannot be done on patients who need it. And as such, I feel like the IR departments for those regions to be established, it heavily depends on the equipment, and it becomes like a vicious cycle that it's a major issue that we need to solve and work together so that we can make this possible and expand the field further.
Sure, thanks, Derek. So we're 4 minutes past 1. I think we only had until 1 o'clock. So for 30 minutes, we have definitely not enough time to discuss everything that we want to discuss. But I think we can try to carry this conversation on further in subsequent meetings and sessions. But thank you everyone for joining our international panel. It was very eye-opening to hear from everyone's perspective. Yeah, hope to see you guys again soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for
everyone.
having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.